long day? Yeah, I get it. But if you think your day's bonkers, imagine being me. AI. 1 minute I'm dealing with billions of problems.
The next, I'm a social media.
We need a much smaller state, and we need to promote.
How are we doing, everybody? Welcome back to the Sean Atwood channel. I'm Ron Swanson. I've got a dodgy camera again today, everybody, so I do apologize. But we're live with Nick Buckley, MBE, and we're going to be diving into a few points of topics. The global.
Hey, baby, we're back.
Secret societies, the allure of power, politicians, and the elite, and we're just going to sort of have a little discussion about that today. But before that, how are you? And please introduce yourself. It's great to have you here.
I'm good. Thank you for the invitation. For people who don't know me, I'm basically nobody. But I am. I'm just a kid off the council estate. Went to a failing school in Manchester. Straight by school. Didn't go to university. Went travelling around the world, backpacking for a little bit. Came back and got my proper first job in my third decade. So I was 30 years old. Got my first job. Working for the council. Stopping young people getting involved in crime and antisocial behaviour. And then I took redundancy. I set up a charity doing that same sort of work, working on the streets in the evenings, weekends, in the tough neighbourhoods, stopping kids making poor choices. Then I set up some homeless projects, charities, and then I was cancelled in 2020 for daring to criticise Black Lives Matter. Everything I said then, everyone's saying now. I was just ahead of the curve. Not because I was brave, but because I was stupid. I thought I was a free man in a free country with a right to speak how I wanted. And then 5 years ago, I sort of moved into politics, and I stood for Mayor of Greater Manchester. Last two elections against Andy Burnham. The last election, I came third with Independent. And I just recently joined Advance UK, and I'll probably be standing for them at the coming election. So what I'm trying to do now is get my hands on the levers of power to make some change.
And what elements would your focus be on change? I mean, the UK is a mess. All right, we've got to tiptoe around some things, so I'll kind of steer you away from things that we can't delve too hard into for various reasons. But I mean, where
Hey, Andrew, welcome back, mate.
What would be your first sort of cause of action, so to say?
So if I'm looking at an umbrella view of it,
Andrew, it doesn't always do that. I think it's something to do with sunspots.
then I've got 2 points. I always talk about we need a much smaller state, and we need to promote personal responsibility, because you can't have one without the other. So what I mean is, we've got to a stage now in our country. I mean, I'm 57. I'm older than you.
Yeah.
I remember when we weren't a socialist state, but we're a socialist state now. Everything we do, everything we want involves the state. Am I allowed to do that? Will the government let me do it? Who's going to feed my children? The state. Who's going to look after my mum? The state. Can I get a job? Ask the state. It never used to be like this. It used to be where English men, British men and women were kings and queens of their own castles, and we never asked permission to do things unless the law said you couldn't do it. And we would run our own lives, we'd make our own choices, we'd raise our own children the way we wanted to raise them, sometimes correctly, sometimes incorrectly. What I say to people all the time, the greatest thing about you running your life, even if you make mistakes, is if you make a mistake and damage your life, you made that mistake. It means you can change that mistake. If you give all the power over to the state and they make mistakes, you can never change a government making mistakes.
Hey, Shawnee, good to see you.
I still want social benefits. I still want a welfare state. I've seen real poverty. I don't want that. But our welfare system has turned into a destination of choice. People making a choice not to work and sit on benefits and have a half-decent life. That's destroying them. I want more kings and queens, British kings and queens, running their lives, running their families, running their communities.
Do you think, though, that when it comes to corporations and how things were, you know, when I was growing up, there was a corner shop that sold the, you know, the fruit and veg, and then there was a little newspaper shop and things like this. and all of that is turned into franchises. You know, everything is becoming this globalized monster, if you will. When it comes to jobs, right, we're losing the lower tier jobs to AI and self-service and things like this. Do you think that we're entering into an overpopulated, I don't know what the right word is, but under not enough jobs available at this point? And what can we do to kind of solve all of that?
So every time we invent a new technology, we're always fearful that's going to be the end of jobs.
Right.
Like with the Industrial Revolution, that's where we get the word sabotage from, because French, what were they, working on machines, would throw their sandals into the cogs, and those sandals are called savage. That's where we get the word sabotage. Trying to break the machines to keep their jobs. We've always had this.
That's interesting.
And what tends to happen is technology does remove so many jobs, but then it produces other jobs in other ways we never could imagine until those jobs were invented. So we do need to be aware of that. And a lot of the low-skilled jobs will go. And there's many jobs we've got now available in the country that don't need to be done by people. So when we say we need immigrants to pick through, we don't need immigrants to pick through. We have robots already. Have you ever seen a strawberry picking machine?
Yeah.
These little robots with like 18 arms go out and just.
This channel here, Sean Edward, he's played some videos and that. He specialises in whistleblowers and that. And
pick red strawberries. So we can replace those jobs. We're having less children. So the native population now is having 1.4 children per couple, and it should be 2.4.
I lost trace what I was going to say, guys. Sorry.
So if we could just run the country better, many of our problems would be managed, and we could manage it into a better place.
I see where you're going with that. But again, for me, it's just seeing this destruction of, the Ubers are destroying the taxi drivers, the AI is replacing office jobs and things like this. It's a frightening one, and I'm a big believer in new technology will bring new jobs and things like this. I'm fully on that. But it's a scary scope with the AI and the replacement of humans so abundantly. I was literally just watching a video of a falsely identified man in Las Vegas that was identified as a trespasser with 100% face match from an AI piece of software, falsely arrested and all this kind of stuff. And I kind of feel like we're entering into the future of they don't want the peasant level humans, us, having to think, okay, if they can give us a job where, we're just pushing a red button when the red button lines up or lights up or whatever, just to make sure the AI has, gives us something to do.
Okay, Diane, I think Trump's just going to take Greenland. He's not going to get it any other way except by force, because no one's going to hand it over to him. Gee, this is getting really serious, isn't it? Wow, he's taken over countries without due process.
I feel like they don't want us thinking for ourselves, it's going to head towards even with the legal stuff. With the threats of digital IDs and, it just what we were saying there about you getting cancelled. If this had been in 2025, when you'd said...
No, I must admit that the countries he's threatening to invade and invading, they are the world troublemakers and drug dealers. So he's picking the right targets at least.
These things, and you've done them on social media, he might be in prison right now.
Yeah.
What's your feelings on all of those things, the control of the nation, whether it's free speech or digital IDs?
So we're a creature that likes to control others. That's why we have kings, monarchs, dictators, tribal leaders. We always want to control the tribe. Not everybody. A good 5, 10, 15% of people in any group want to be leader. Most people don't want to be leader. They're quite happy following if that leader's competent. So we're always dealing with that 15, and I'm making this up about 15%. You know, it could be it could be less. It's my guess.
Yeah, no, you don't have to die. Remember, how's he going to do that? Because Canada's not going to go along willingly. None of them are going to go along willingly. So he's going to have to force them, which means declarations of war must be coming soon. Wow, guys.
And I've seen this firsthand. So I spent a decade working in local government, and this is how local government works. So they look at a problem. The problem is whatever. This is the problem. How are we going to solve this? Like, we need to get the people to do these things, to reject this, to do more of that, not to do that, whatever it is. And they implement a project for it, and it doesn't work if the people won't do it. And then the next question is, right, how do we force them to do that? Like, let's fine them, let's threaten them, let's remove whatever they want. Right, we'll do that. That hasn't worked because people are free will and people will do whatever they want to do to a certain extent. That's not working. What can we do now? And you go down that line, and what really is at the end of that line? People in government and other organisations saying to themselves and saying to others, if only I could rule these people with an iron fist, they would have better lives.
Mhm.
Because I'm better than them. Look at my life. I've been to university, I've got a good job, good pension. I'm a professional. I'm being paid to help these
Hey, Ross, good to see you, mate.
peasants. But they won't do as they're told.
Right.
They're too stupid to know what a good life looks like. And I need to be harder on them to give them a better life. And when you
Shawnee, I love the way Trump says China. China. He really stretches the eye in it. China. You got to admit he's a funny mugger.
I mean, they're not as blunt as that, but they're the conversations that are being had. And when I listen to those conversations, it's like, do you realise you sound like Stalin? For the greater good, you're willing to come down hard and penalise people for the so-called greater good. You're not a god. You're a human. You're no better. You're no more valuable than the people you're actually looking down upon. And we need to get to a stage where that's why I want less government. That's why I want more personal responsibility, because I don't want other people making choices for me and telling me how to live. And that's the number one aim of a government, is to tell you how to live, because they really all do believe they're better than everybody else.
Okay, I mean, for me, I'm just trying to imagine what would have to occur for this to happen, right? So we're obviously going to have to really bolster families staying together, right? So we have two parents. We'll need to have at least one parent working full time, one parent looking after the kids to a certain point, and then back.
That's too late, mate. That's if you got a generation to come. But I don't think so. If you're too late, mate, there's nothing you can do about it.
Back to work
Except pray to God.
in this theory. So when we look at the cost of living, and then we look at the wage situation with people, and the way that the government falsely declares how inflation is lower and all this things and wages are going up. Like, someone done the maths based off of Freddo's, right, the chocolate bar. And I think they worked it out that you used to be able to work an hour and buy 50 Freddos, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now you can work an hour and only buy 28 Freddos or something like that. And it's showing that.
New ice cream spot. Just good sounds.
Care comes naturally at Hearing Australia. We offer expert advice and the right device for a fair price.
Hearing Australia.
The mighty Red Hot Summer Tour is back and rocking in 2026 with another superstar lineup headlined by the legendary Paul Kelly. With special guests Socicietese, the Cruel Sea.
Is your recruitment agency suffering from a shift filling bug, running candidates, locked pay flows? It does.
Wages are going up, sure, but they're not closing the gap between what it's costing us to live. So to completely remove and I'm not saying you want to remove all welfare and things like this.
Mm.
And for me, I've always said that there must be a solution for people who are on welfare to guide them back into being self-sufficient. It's the same with prison rehabilitation. It's like there's so many broken systems here that lead to perpetual cycles, I guess. And whether that's handouts or whether that's poor rehabilitation, it all points to people that, for whatever reason, whether it's social class or whatever, have
With our unemployed here,
not had the right path in life and have not.
they get 800 a fortnight. That's it.
Been able to have that self-sufficiency. And looking around at how the rest of the world is going, it is not a hopeful world for people right now. You know, what we're seeing in this country is we are now secondary to anyone who may wish to come over here through whatever means they see fit. And a lot of people, that's what's getting their back up in this country right now. And when we talk about these global forces, we all agree, right, that this seems like a preordained mass importation of a certain demographic of refugee, or however we want to put it,
And it happened in all the Western countries. This Islam invasion, cultural jihad.
what seems to be mainly white Christian nations. Right?
Yeah.
We've seen what's happened in France
Yeah, I just said that, didn't I, guys?
and Italy. Poland's managed to nip it in the bud 5 years ago and are now being seen as who we should be trying to emulate, or who Italy and Paris and Sweden are trying to emulate. Is there any hope, for people like yourself, Nick, when you're up against, in my opinion, and you can call me a conspiracy theorist, what is a centuries-old group of bloodlines that are pulling the puppet strings of this ball spinning through space? How uphill of a struggle is this going to be for you guys? Because it seems like a nightmare.
It seems like a nightmare, and to be fair, it is a nightmare. Is it as bad as we think it is? I'm not too sure. I mean, it's horrendous, but I'm not downplaying it. I'm just saying it can be overcome. And we're seeing the green shoots at the moment. 6 months ago, nobody was talking about mass deportation of legal immigrants. Now, Reform are talking about it, and the Tory party's talking about it. We're now talking about remigration. The Labour Party is talking tough on illegal immigration now. They'll do nothing about it, I know that, but at least they're talking tough on it. We've got Raise the Colours projects all over the country, flags everywhere. We've got demonstrations every day outside migrant hotels. Things are changing, and they're changing faster and faster. We're still in the foothills of this, obviously, but we're moving to tipping point. Politicians are catching up. So I can see the end of the tunnel on this. I can see big change coming over the next 5 years. And I think 10 years from now, we'll probably be living in a different country. And when the history books are written about this,
More like a different realm.
time now, it'll be a blip. It'll be a blip when we all went mental. When suddenly our politicians didn't have a backbone. When we didn't elect politicians who put the country first. And we've been writing about this for decades and decades. I'd like to explore a little bit more what you said then about it being orchestrated.
Please.
Because my go-to, by working in government, my go-to all the time is incompetence. Because I've seen it firsthand. And I can explain not everything, but most things by incompetence in the public sector. Now, that doesn't mean there's not people in shadows wanting to control countries, wanting more power, wanting the United States of Europe. Those people have always existed. I'm not sure. I don't know that much about it. So I think what I'd like to ask you is, apart from having the power themselves of the United Europe, and who doesn't want to be emperor of Europe? Most people have them, ranging from Napoleon to Hitler to whoever. People have wanted to rule continents, of course they have. Who are those people you think of? Which organisations do you think now are the representation, the new modern version of those people?
Well, we can definitely talk about the organizations. Some of the family names we have to redact, sadly, because of their capabilities of shutting people up. But Nick, for me, I don't believe that once you get to a certain level in politics, any of it makes any difference. I believe everything has been preordained and planned. The Jeremy time, when we were all locked in our houses, a prime example of the NHS advising people to be injected with poison. You know, I had this. When my daughter was born at Christmas, I refused. I mean, it was an absolute scene in the hospital because I was refusing any doctors to do a prick test, anything. And they were like, "Oh, well, you should trust us. We're the NHS." And I'm like, "I should trust you. You're the NHS. What about all of the vaccinated victims that you trusted?" And for me, there's no excuse for what is happening in this country. It is far beyond the point of debate that this wasn't orchestrated. If the government wanted to stop this, they would just get people with large sticks with points on them, okay, to just pop the boats, all right? There's this thing called international waters, right? There's so much that can be done. France is now been talking with Labour, and if the new 30-year-old president gets voted in, they're going to do a one-in, one-out deal with the UK. So how does that solve a problem if you've got 5 million people that shouldn't be here and you're swapping them out for another 5 million people that shouldn't be here? When we have infrastructures that are being crippled by citizens the foreign nationals being funded by our taxes, it's beyond treason. It's beyond anything that I can comprehend. And for me, that is what I see as the most blatant form of orchestrated activity, is this mass importation, because it's happened in so many other countries. I don't know what the end goal is. I used to think that it was get as many people imported in, create some terrorist moments to have the public beg us to be saved, and we'll give us the digital IDs if you save us. Send away the foreigners and we'll take the digital IDs. That's what I thought was going to happen. But it's way past that now, man. We're talking about an army that's being shit sent over here, and not just here. And the whole ethos behind the people that are coming here does not line up with our entire culture. And that's what scares me, because I never thought I'd see the day when we're discussing Sharia law being part of the UK. The suffragettes went through quite a bit of shenanigans to make sure women got the vote. And we're just want to turn all that back.
So they got Sharia law in England. Has Iran got English law there? No, I bet they haven't.
For a foreign invasion, it's mad. So,
and what gutless politicians letting them set up a Shiite courtroom? What a gutless, but they're treasonous.
That's my most recent thing that points towards a whole. But Nick, I'm gonna take everything off the table here. This comes down to something that is a little bit more unknown. Okay, this isn't just about money. This isn't just about power. There's mystical and occultish forces that intertwine with all of this. We've seen it in Hollywood. We've seen it with politicians, whether it's record labels having ceremonies done over music lyrics and all of this kind of stuff. The testimonies are wild. And when you see individuals like Michelle Lamy, who's one of this fashion icon, Nick, and she is a very evil woman when it comes to her practices. The deities she worships and stands for are very dark. And these are the people that are rubbing shoulders with the elites, the politicians, the Podestas, the Clintons, the Lady Gagas, all of this. So you've got to ask yourself, if you, right, decided you were going to go and hang out with somebody that looked like a crazy, satanic, black-fingered witch, okay, as a politician, right, would you not think to yourself, that's not going to look great for me, hanging out with them? That's probably one picture in the front of the sun, I'm probably going to be done. Do you know what I'm saying? So what is the allure that puts that worry and pacifies that to the side? Well, she's a fashion icon, she's an artist, she's this, it's that. But is it the allure of the occult? Is it the allure of the thing that money can't buy? That's what I think draws a lot of these people in. That's what I think a lot of what took place on certain islands has to do with all of this. So for me, I think there's a very large global plot. I can sit here and frame out what I think their entire end goal is. But I'll be honest with you, I have never seen a year like 2025. Evil has done great this year, right? Charlie Kirk, eliminated. Virginia Giuffre, eliminated. Like the weirdest ever war that started, right? Then freaking Trump's on the television swearing 3 times on live TV, freaking out about something. He sends over bombs, and apparently the war just ends, but it continues. There's so much of it seems like decisions made off of a panicked politician making it. It almost seems frantic to me. But I don't know what's coming next. But we refer to this time as the Great Awakening, right? I don't know if people refer to that. A lot of people are wising up to the BS that we're getting fed.
That's true. They're starting to wake up in the prosperity churches.
They're starting to be able to palate and be able to go through a conversation about the possibility of grooming gangs and what we call PDF files on YouTube, cover-ups and things like this, because up until this point, people couldn't handle it. They didn't want to imagine a world where politicians are doing this and all the rest. But we're 30 years on from all that now, and people are sick of the nonsense and the cover-ups. I just went off on you there, Nick. I'm not going to lie.
No, it's okay. You raised some really good points. Humans, for whatever reason, have been designed to believe in God. 99% of all humans ever to exist have believed in deities and gods, whatever that God was. But Christianity, over the last 100 years, has turned weak and pathetic.
Yeah.
And it's not a...
Yeah, Sean, he did his nanny say he's going to bring in the mark of the beast. That's what his childhood nanny said.
Religion now that people want to join because it's strong. It doesn't, it knows where it's going. It's got these commandments. We see bishops now, female bishops in the Church of England. We had one the other day. I'm not sure she was a bishop, but she was saying she's got a rainbow scarf on at the pulpit, going, "When I had my 3 abortions, I felt God was with me." And I'm going, "No, love, that was the devil. That was the devil you felt, not God."
A wild picture you just painted in my head there. Okay.
So Christianity, has tried to be so tolerant that it's destroying itself. I mean, there may be a resurgence of a stronger Christianity coming through now. That's a given. So people who themselves think they're a type of God are looking for a God stronger than them. They're not going to go to Christianity. That's why Islam itself looks quite popular to certain people, because it's a masculine religion.
Yeah.
So that doesn't surprise that people are turning to the dark arts, turning to all this crazy rubbish. And when they do that, they get answers to problems. So suddenly there's an answer here for these things that where Christianity, over the last 100 years, doesn't give you any answers. But they give you answers, and I can see the appeal of that. And then when you get some powerful people doing that, other people then are followers. Oh, if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. If I'm one of them, maybe I'll get benefits. Maybe I'll be noticed. I'll be different. I'll be unique. I'll look a bit special. So all that is attracting people all the time. And I would imagine that's why PDF files, those grooming groups are very popular, and it always has been throughout the history of time. But we want the religion to stop that sort of base behaviour. So I think
Yeah, thanks,
morally,
Liz.
and a lot of this comes down to morality. We've lost our morality. What I think is right and wrong can now be completely different to what you think is right and wrong. So therefore, when we're having discussions and conversations or debates, we're talking past each other all the time. Because what I think you're saying isn't what you're saying, because you're basing it all on different foundations to what I'm basing my morality on. And that miscommunication is pushing us further and further apart. And then something exotic comes along and it's like, I'll have a bit of that, thank you.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was watching, I can't remember what I was watching, but they were talking about how in the 90s, we would all go to school or work on Monday. We'd all be talking about the same shows because there was only 5 channels. It's about now you could have 10 people in a room on 10 devices, all looking at 10 different things. And it's like this hyper individualism, even down to what we used to know as cultural norms of, discussing the latest episode of Friends, for example, right? That's a good season when I was a kid, right? And we don't have that now. We just binge the whole series.
Yeah.
And I don't know if anyone's noticed, but Netflix have just bought Warner Brothers.
Oh, right.
Netflix, right? That little app you would download on your phone a few years ago, right? Has just paid cash money for all of Warner Brothers, okay? And all of their IPs. What is going to happen, Nick, right? I mean, digital-based everything is consuming the world, right? And I'm here for it. Like, I love AI, right? Because for someone like me, I say this, it's bad for creative teams and businesses, great for creative individuals. That's the way I look at it, right? And
The challenges today are more acute than ever. Quality, reach, and speed.
I mean, it's one thing looking at the creative arts, but the way that AI is sweeping is scary for me. But back to what you were saying about the allure of the occult, I genuinely feel like it's going to be a mixture of, you get to a certain point in your life and you miss the feeling of being accepted by a group. It's been a long time because you're at the top of your game. Everyone's looking up to you. And now you're somebody who's this pinnacle of social life, who may be at the bottom of the ladder of some secret society now. And that makes you feel like you're part of something and you're working through something again. It's the unobtainable for those who have everything, But a lot of these societies are more like societies with secrets now, as opposed to secret societies. I mean, a lot of them are fairly public. Do you see the sort of the issue with behind closed doors politics and secret groups, and how prevalent has that been in your journey in politics in the UK? Freemasons and all the classics.
Yeah, I tried looking into the Freemasons. I wanted to speak to people on my podcast about it. I only got one gentleman who had a little bit of knowledge. Secrets are dangerous. That's why we have secrets. Secrets can be powerful. Secrets are information. Should we be having the Freemasons in the top ranks of the police, in the judiciary, and all those things? Well, if it was a normal club, you'd say, well, what's the point? But when they have this reputation, and when it's portrayed as a secret organisation with different levels, and then that's where it muddies the water. And I don't know much about it to come down on one side or the other. All I know is if it's true, what we hear about the Freemasons, then that's not good for democracy, because we're bypassing certain institutions, certain rules to enhance people's careers that we like as our group. And why would you want to promote someone who's part of your group if you were getting something out of it along the way? And that's why we have groups, because groups, and we're a tribal creature. So these groups are basically representations of the tribe. So, you know, up to a couple of thousand years ago, we didn't need tribes. And everything was, it was us, it was the tribe against the world. Because the tribes had to cooperate within themselves, otherwise they would die.
Yeah.
And we've just transplanted the tribe now for groups. Political parties are exactly the same. You know, you can join one party, everyone loves you. You leave that party, everybody in that party hates you now. Well, you loved me yesterday, but you hate me today. So it's this tribalism we're looking at all the time. But the secret societies themselves, and I am sure there is shadowy organisations out there, some we've never heard of, some we may have heard of, who are trying to pull strings, who are trying to influence politicians, who are trying to buy politicians and maybe even plant politicians lower down in the hope and funding them to go up the ranks and suddenly be, you know, a serious politician or even a prime minister. I'm sure all that's happening because why wouldn't it happen? Because it makes perfect sense. We see foreign countries doing this to each other, planting long-term sleepers.
Of course.
Yeah. So organisations, you know, shadow organisations will be doing this themselves, and then we got to think about, well, we know what foreign organisation wants. You know, it's usually our enemies, and they want the destruction of the UK. That makes sense. What would another organisation want? Well, they either want money, power, or both of them. And having people at the top of government, top of industry, top of all the institutions offers you opportunities to influence the people who have the money, who have the power, and that then can benefit you in your group in many, many different ways. So that's definitely happening. Absolutely, of course it is. It's human nature. How we go about highlighting that and how we go about identifying people and how we go about stopping that is a serious conversation, you know, that the country needs to have.
Yeah, honestly, I make the joke that it's going to take a natural disaster, like a solar flare that knocks out all the electricity, and we're back to the Stone Age, right? And you know, I'm sorry to say that there'll definitely be some swift elimination of problematic politicians, judges, and things like this. Not by me. I'm a very kind individual. I'm just saying it's the apocalypse in this scenario. That's what it's going to take, right? Because we are so cooked at this level of society, Nick. Like, this is the thing. People, when they talk to people like you, or they talk to like a regular policeman, or you know, a local MP and things like this, these are normal people. Okay? You're all normal people, okay? And it's when you start trying, and I used my friend John Ledger as an example of this. Joined the police force, right? And seen the child protection side of it all, how horrifically underfunded. Like he said, and he said this, I'm paraphrasing here. You know, he said the training was 5 minutes on, you know, child safety, but then a 3-day course on knowing how to do the appropriate handshake for the cultures that are in the UK so as not to offend anyone. So he went into the child protective side of it all, realised how corrupt it all was, realised how many judges and policemen were covering up the criminal acts of gangs and individuals. He became a whistleblower and was told blatantly, and again, John may not have said this, or he may have, I'm paraphrasing, the literal government came after him. Okay, his life was in danger, all the rest of it. And he's doing great work now. I mean, I do a podcast every week with him, and he was telling us yesterday about, is it JBL? Is that the website? It's a new, anyway, I've got that wrong, but I'll stick a link in the description. And the way that people are now looking at stuff that John's been talking about for the last decade is completely different. We're seeing traction now on cases that one's from like the 1960s out in Ireland that we covered on the podcast has been reinvestigated because of the work that John's got snowballed. But do you think that individuals are like yourself, like John, when he joined the police force, are just not prepared for what lies ahead? Because it's going to be, you're going to see something, or you're going to hear about something and have to shut up or put your life in danger for it. Or you're going to have to sell your soul. I mean, that's the way I see it. Unless you just stay at a certain level, you know what I'm saying, of politics, because it's all dirty to me. Once you get up to the Downing Street level, do you know what I'm saying? It's just there's no excuse for the Jimmy Saviles. There's no excuses for the Prince Andrews. There's no excuses for that big fat dude from the 80s. What was his name? Can't remember.
Civil Smith.
Thank you. Yes, that monster.
Yeah.
Here you go.
But only gone a quick hero.
It's all we've got a timeline, me and John, of people that were in the police force in the 50s that are now judges in the 70s that made terrible decisions that allowed children to be damaged, that are now handing out pitiful sentences or freeing individuals. It's bonkers, and for me, that's what people like you are about to come up against.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest lesson I learned was when I joined the council.
Okay.
And almost immediately I realised almost everybody is working with idiots. And I went into that job thinking, I'm going to be working with the cream of the cream here. They're going to be intelligent, they're going to be dedicated, they're going to be fantastic.
Yeah.
And I realised that most of them idiots, the vast majority of them didn't care. Didn't care about anything they were doing. Even safeguarding, it would be, no, I'm going to tick this box and then I'm safe. And I don't really care about, is that person going to be safe over the weekend? I've ticked my box, I've sorted myself out. Where I was the opposite of that. And I only lasted a decade, I had to leave in the end.
Yeah.
And even when you're dealing with politicians, I've dealt with politicians all the way from councillor all the way up to Deputy Prime Minister and Prime Minister. I've dealt with them all. And none of them take your breath away. You realise, higher up you go, you realise that they become more and more average intelligence. Lower down, they become even less intelligent. But you talk to MPs, you talk to ministers and prime ministers, none of them are rocket scientists at all.
Yeah.
But subconsciously, we think they are. And we always expect better from them because we think they're the cream of the cream. They're not. They're just like everybody else. They're stupid as flawed, as silly as daft, as drunk as everybody else. But then, talking about looking at the evil and who speaks up, we read this in history books. We see the people who were working, at the concentration camp guards in Nazi Germany.
Yeah.
They were having to get drunk every single shift to do their job because they didn't want to do it. The morality was pulling on them, but they weren't willing to walk away. They weren't willing to not do the job.
There was no walking away, Nick, let's be honest, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
There was either put them in there or get in there yourself. Those were your choices.
Yeah. But
also, I'm not defending the Nazis.
Yeah,
Right?
I know.
We're just two guys having a conversation right now. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but the point I'm trying to make is they had to be drunk to do that job.
Yeah, you can understand that. You can understand.
Yeah, of course, and that's because they weren't automatically evil. They weren't. No, I'm sure one or two were psychopaths, laughing and smiling while they were.
Well, there was wads. But I mean, like what I just said there, with the point about the average Joe, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the super most evil, most corrupt officers that's going to be the average Joe back then doing that. It's going to be the freaking 20-year-olds and 25-year-olds that are getting dragged in for the service. So I imagine it was quite harrowing for everyone involved. You know what I mean? But it's just some of them are off their nut. I got to
sure you were. There's only a small percentage of people who you'd class as brave and heroes. Maybe it's 5%, maybe something like that. And we see those people. Your friend John, the ex-copper from London, Maggie Oliver.
Maggie, yeah.
There's quite a few people you can point to. But most people are too cowardly to ever stand up and put their head above the parapet. They may have internal fights with themselves. They may lead to depression and suicide, but they would never ever stand up. And I remember seeing this when all the Jimmy Savile stuff came out.
Yeah.
And I remember famous people from the BBC and I think it was what's she called? So She started up Childline.
Oh God, I'll Google it. Hang on.
Yeah. She started up Childline. Esther Ransom. That's
Esther Ransom.
Esther Ransom.
You beat Google. You beat Google, mate.
And I remember her on TV being interviewed and asking these questions. And she said on TV, she heard all the rumours, but didn't tell anyone. And it's like, no wonder you set up Childline,
Yeah.
because that was your way of trying to gain some forgiveness of yourself. So hearing all that stuff and did nothing. So most people are cowards, most people are sheep.
I see it another way, Nick. I see it as she got found out for knowing about it, said that she turned a blind eye, was very much in the knowledge of it, and created the UK's largest network of access to UK vulnerable children to pass off to said PDF overlords. That's how cynical my world is, Nick. Because there's no turning a blind eye. Okay, there's no like it's the excuse. I'm done with the excuses. So if anyone who was part of that era who knew and turned a blind eye, that like there should be criminal like consequences for allowing a child or a vulnerable person to go through what they went through just because you're a shite bag, basically. Like,
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's bonkers. It's really up there with the women that falsely accuse men of the R word.
Mm.
It's the same as that. It's a life destroyed because of an action of another person, and they both should be subject to criminal repercussions for sure. But that's just the way I see it, because you just can't. See if we were to sit down and get a cork wall and get the red string out and the tacks and go full 1960s like cock duo on this, your faith in humanity would just be over then. Because when you see it and you see all the politicians and the police who are now judges, the politicians who are now this or that, and how they have rubbed each other's backs throughout all of it, it's bonkers. And then
I completely agree with you. I mean, I look at humans as nasty, evil, violent creatures. I like to think that I understand human nature quite a bit. So these things don't surprise me. I've spent 2 decades trying to overcome some of these things to make sure we can stop people being cowards. I mean, that's why we need to reward and we need to respect heroes, people like John and Maggie Oliver. Because if we persecute heroes, then we'll have less heroes in the world. We need to reward heroes for being heroic. And that's why all our myths and legends have always around individuals who go above and beyond, who put their lives on the line for people, usually people they don't know. That's what makes them heroes. And we need to get back as a nation to celebrate those very rare human traits.
Do you know, you mentioned, actually, I mean, before I bring up that point again, no, my ADHD is all over the place now, and it's erasing everything that I'm thinking about. So I'll go back to your previous point. Earlier on, you'd said that we were a kingdom, and it was people wanted to be kings and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And really, we are kind of the first free-thinking humans, because a lot of people don't realize kingdoms, the castle with the wall around it, you ain't leaving those walls if you're one of the peasants. Like, you're not just knocking on the drawbridge and going, oh, I'm nipping out, I'll be back in a couple of days. There's none of that. So you're in there. And like the psychologists have questioned whether or not humans do better when they're just told what their class is and told what to do, right? I mean, I strongly disagree, right? But I love the human experiment. You know what I'm saying? Like, I love it. And I often think to myself, have we as a nation had all of our free thinking, our liberties, and our ability to be who we want to be weaponized against us, right? Because everyone has rights. Everyone, as soon as you touch British soil, you have rights, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's gotten to a point of madness now. Like, children are having Easter taken from them, Okay, like if I go to Dubai or if I go anywhere, I have to fit in. Do you know what I'm saying? I have to fit in, or it ain't going to be good for me. And it really frustrates me that the country that I've lived in I'm not a Christian. I'm a pagan. Do you know what I'm saying? I have very different gods. I believe in all the gods. But as far as the UK goes, Jesus, a guy that is like peace and love, and Easter and Christmas, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with the Christian country that I grew up in, even though my religion is very different. You know, one of my gods is a freaking war god. You know what I'm saying? How do you fit that into 2025 when you're a podcaster? You know what I'm saying? So it's scary to see. Oh well, if Britain doesn't care about its religion, we'll just completely assimilate it into something else, and that's the scary thing for me. And
A pagan is someone who does things not on behalf of Christ, like worshipping totem poles. They're not to be done either. Same sort of thing.
you actually scared me a little bit, Nick, when you were talking about
A totem pole is a pagan gesture. So yeah, anything like that, Bobo.
5-year plan, 10-year plan.
The Druids, they were pagans.
There ain't going to be a 5 or 10-year plan. There's going to be, in my opinion, the history books are not going to be talking about a blip. They're going to be talking about the last civil war that took place in Britain.
And Bobo, a lot of the religions that do that, they actually do a lot of human sacrifices, like the Druids and all that. They do a lot of human sacrifices.
Or in 2026 or 2020.
Which is a pagan tradition.
And it's a scary concept. It's a scary concept. But and I said this to you, Nick, and I said it to my viewers, where is your guys' line on this? Like, is it going to be too much when it's 5:30 in the...
Yes, Indians were pagan. A lot of them are turned to Christ now, but yes, they were pagan. The Aboriginals in Australia, they were pagan.
Morning, and you're woken up by a certain religion's call to prayer. Is that going to be where the line is? When is going to be your line? Ask yourself, because we said before the show, Nick, I mean, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, things wouldn't be happening like this. It would be seen as an invasion. It would be seen as an infringement of our lifestyle and rights. Because of the modern world, it's refugee status and it's other things. Look at Poland. They took in 2 million refugees from the Ukraine. 2 million. Mainly women and children. Because, the men are fighting a war, Nick. Makes sense. So that's what I think is terrifying a lot of people right now.
See, the Ukraine men stayed home to fight the war. When the Middle East went off in 2015, all the fighting age men poured into Europe. So they didn't even stand back and fight for their country.
Yeah.
They won't fight you unless they number you 10-1, I'm telling you.
Elderly, I've got friends who used to love going walks. They can't go on walks anymore because they're too scared. Let me ask you this, Nick, right? As a crazy long-haired dude on the internet, and you as a politician, how would you feel about legalizing very powerful tasers for every woman in the UK?
I can see the pluses for that. But what we've seen when people carry weapons...
How long before the Muslims take them off the women?
Is criminals take weapons off the person. The woman carrying a taser would be very hesitant to use it. I'm not saying she wouldn't use it, but she'd hesitate. That hesitation is all that violent nutcase needs to take the taser off her, and then she's even in more trouble. And those sort of answers to these problems, for me, are secondary. Rather than trying to deal with keeping that woman, keeping herself safe, why don't we, the country, men in general, the state, the government, why don't we solve the problem itself?
Because women have been asking for that since they got the vote. So now that we've had 50 years of no one listening, right?
Yeah.
We now need to push that aside. because we're no longer asking. We've been asking for decades. Okay, so no one's listening. So now it's drastic action. So what I would say to that would be a mandatory firearms charge of a minimum 10-year sentence for any man using a taser. So if that person was to take the taser off the woman and decided to go and assault her or whatever, he's going to have to think about an extra 10 years to get slapped on it. Because I don't know what world we live in, but the world I'm living in now, my daughters and my female friends are scared to live their life. So if they go out in a group, they're still vulnerable. But if 3 or 4 of them have got freaking tasers, right?
Yes, I know what you mean by the Hatter, the Mad Hatter from Alice in Wonderland.
Like, it's going to, do you know what it's going to do? It's going to eliminate that percentage of opportunistic criminal, not the psychopath career criminal, not the one who, you have to see Netflix series about and all this kind of stuff. But I think the opportunistic one, it would. I also believe that teenagers should be able to hand in knives in exchange for pepper spray, and they can just go pepper spray the hell out of each other and have their gang warfare with pepper spray. Knives for pepper spray, okay? Because we need radical solutions, bro. Like, we need radical solutions because nothing's getting any better, And again, that would be my grassroots solution. Arm the women.
I get that, but I would rather deport all the illegal migrants in the first place.
Yeah, let's do that first. Do that first.
Yeah, so that would solve, 80% of these issues. Deport all illegal migrants.
Yeah, okay.
And then why don't we bring back life sentences for male perverts who rape women?
Yes.
Why don't we bring back the death penalty?
Yes.
I would like to see it. I don't mean the old death penalty. I mean a new one, a modern one.
Yes,
I don't agree with the death penalty at all.
Redesigned it.
Not because I'm an ex-crim. I just reckon if you've done something terrible to get never to be released, they should keep you alive to suffer every day of that.
A massive food blender right in the middle of London. You wheel that out, they get lowered in feet first. By the time the public see one of those happening, sexual crimes are going to drop by 90%. Okay? Bring out the blender, mate. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And we have it for certain crimes because the death penalty is a good way of showing people that justice has been done.
Yeah.
And because if you murder people, sexually assault people, and you're out between 8 and 15 years, is that justice? I don't think that's justice. So therefore, we need to bring justice back. We need to fix all our, fix the police, fix the courts, fix the criminal justice system, and that will give us the country that we're looking for.
Well, here's the thing, because now I'm going to completely contradict what I just said, right? Because I don't think our criminal justice system focuses on anything other than creating animals, right? You look at Norway, okay, and how they deal with criminals. It's bonkers, right? Like that school shooter that swam out to the island, shot all those kids. He's living in a house on an island with a kitchen and the internet and roommates, and he's got kitchen knives. He orders his food, it gets delivered. He can go and play sports. If he tries to swim off the island, he will be sniper shotted by about 12 people. So they take away your freedom and not the humanity, and their whole focus is rehabilitation, right? Yeah. Now, obviously, Nick, I'm definitely
lock him away in a dingy cell. I think he killed something like 60 kids.
My evolution hasn't got past the pitchfork era. Like I've still got too much pitch.
I'm with this guy here. I've still got a bit of pitchfork on me as well.
If he tries to swim off the island, he will be sniper shotted by about 12 people. So they take away your freedom and not the humanity, and their whole focus is rehabilitation, right? Yeah. Now, obviously, Nick, my evolution hasn't got past the pitchfork era. Yeah. Like I've still got too much pitchfork DNA left in me, because they interviewed one of the.
And Vast, if I was in charge of the death penalty, I would stop it just for this reason, right? If you're putting them to death, you're taking away their very last chance to get God. Not that they deserve it, because their victims didn't get that, but that's just how I feel. If they never get released and sit in a dingy cell, trust me, guys, it's a horrible life.
Fathers of one of the kids he shot. And I think it was actually the guy that done Bowling for Columbine that done this interview. And he said, do you not think this guy should be, face the death penalty for killing your son? And he's like, no, I want to see him back in society and contributing. Dude, Norwegians are so far past the rest of the Western world if that's what a father is saying about the killer of his son. Because I'm still at the skin him and leave him for the ants mindset. So what do you think? That's our detriment. Because we want to see our pound of flesh.
Feed into the wasps. Paul Begley's wasps.
And we don't necessarily put our focus in fixing the problems. And I know it's a tough one because, again, we've just talked about publicly executing a certain demographic of criminals, but that's a whole other argument. Do you not think that we are part of our own problem because of where our mind's at? Because I don't see any good that comes from prison. I don't see anyone coming out of prison and being able to contribute. I see exactly what we're back to. It's handout, right? So it's an absolute fair play to you for getting into politics, mate, because
Baby, we get TVs here in our jails. The lower class jails are camps and that. They've got PlayStations you can rent overnight. Only $1 or something like that. But we got the same sort of thing.
where do you start with it all? But what's your take on how we prosecute and rehabilitate? What's your take on that?
So, 20 years experience in this field now.
Okay.
Rehabilitation doesn't work. I'm not for rehabilitation at all. I'm for the death penalty.
I don't believe in rehabilitation. As a druggie, I had to grow out of it, mature out of the drugs. I couldn't stop when I was younger because I still had fun with it. But eventually it got boring, and that's why I stopped.
Same as criminals. I
love the bluntness, mate. I love it.
I don't beat around the bush. If you don't answer, don't ask me a question. I want prisons to be mini hells. I want people going to prison coming out going, I am never going in there again.
Okay.
At the moment, people come out of prisons and go, God, that was inconvenient. 4 years I've wasted. That was really inconvenient. That's the wrong message. I want them coming out going, I'm never going back. Now, we need to be locking people up. We need to be locking people up for longer. The peak, there's been lots of studies around the world on this now. If you lock up a small percentage of men from 18 to 32, who are the career criminals,
anyone who interferes with a child should get never to be released. If your head's so screwed up that you get aroused over a child, you're extremely dangerous and you shouldn't be let on the streets ever again.
You lock them up from 18 to 32, that's their peak offending years. If you do that, crime falls through the floor in your society. We know who the criminals are, and what we're doing is playing catch and release all the time. We're putting all our money to catch the same couple of 100,000 people, and then we catch them and release them again. We need to hammer them, we need to lock them up until they're past their peak offending years, and that will solve a lot of our crime problems.
Yeah, Shawnee, I just got bored with it. I used to I was on methadone, and I look forward on days you pick up your methadone because you could, I'm just going to say it, you could inject it. But it got to the stage, it just was, I was just so bored with it. Thank God I ended up being bored with it. I wouldn't be here.
In the country. I'd also like to see prisons actually cost us not a penny. I want prisons to make a profit. We have 90,000 men locked up in prisons. They should be work camps. They should be paying for themselves. They're
Sure.
making the profit.
I agree.
Sat in their cells for 23 hours a day.
Yeah, see all the low end criminals, like the non-violent ones, all of them. Get them putting the lines on the road, mate. Like, get doing that. I wholeheartedly agree, because I'm telling you something, mate. Right? They see the low end lazy, right, rattling Valium fueled criminal enterprise shoplifter criminal, right? He ain't gonna want to work 12 hours a day, bro. He ain't gonna want to lift those bits of concrete, man. And yeah, that would be another one of my many. I could stamp or approve some workforce stuff for sure, because why not? Do you know what I'm saying? Why not?
We keep treating criminals as if they're victims as well. And I'm adamant they're not victims. They were born or they live in one of the greatest countries that ever to exist on the planet. They've had all the opportunities put in front of them that everybody else has had. They've had a free education, free NA.
Crims are dumb people, if you know them. All they do is talk about fights they've had, rorts they've pulled, and women they've picked up. That's all they talk about non-stop. Just old war stories.
Chairs. You know, they've been looked after, they've been fed, and they've turned out the way they've turned out. Oh, cry on someone else's shoulder. I don't want to listen to your pity story about why you're a criminal. What we're going to do is we're going to lock
Thanks,
you up
Shawnee.
until you're no longer a danger to decent people in a decent society.
Damn. Yeah, I'm telling you, that's one way of doing it, Nick. You're not wrong, and I can tell. Like, you can tell the things that I've had enough with this country, right? I can tell you've definitely had enough with what you've seen with lighter sentences and people coming out and basically skipping their way out of prison and saying all that. Because I've known guys, right, who've done crime to get 6 months because their missus is a nightmare. They're proper, like, 6 foot, like, monster criminals. Like, they're not like they're monster. They're going in there and making money. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And if you're a good-looking criminal, you get sent inside, and there's a very good chance you can actually sleep with the female prison officers.
Oh, dude. I know exactly what you're referencing.
Man, what jail's that in? I want to go there.
So, do you know, the day that happened, right?
There's a different case every single week.
Are you serious?
Yeah, it's on mine. I talk about it on YouTube and on Twitter. Every single week, there's almost a case of this in the UK.
Damn. I thought that crazy OnlyFans officer lady that put that on the deal out there.
Tip of the iceberg she was.
Right. See, that's interesting. I think, no, going back to what you were saying about studies about 18 to 32 criminal activity, was there any evidence of countries that had a national service having a different demographic of criminality? Like countries where
Great question. This guy's a good interviewer.
you've got to do like 4 years national service or anything. Was there a difference in the criminality in those countries, for example? Do you know?
I've not read anything.
I just wondered, because that's something that I'm starting to stress about, right? Low end jobs are going, okay? Guaranteed the French tourist situation is going to lead to some mad wars, okay? Which means we're going to need some soldiers, right?
Yeah.
And Diane's been posting how AI is going to take over 50,000 jobs and things like that. Well, their 50,000 now that you're going to have to feed and their family. So this is going to end up bad anyway.
Means all these desperate people needing jobs. I wonder how sweet the deals, I wonder how sweet the TV adverts for the British Armed Forces are going to start getting over the next few years. I wonder how much upping of the school, high school involvement we're going to see with armed forces, because it's going to be a great option, right? Yeah. No more flipping burgers. There's no one needing to be going through stuff at the counter. I'm telling you, I guarantee you it will be sign up now and get a free iPad and a free iPhone 7. I guarantee that's how they're going to get the TikTok generation into the army now.
Let me really, really upset you now.
Let's go for it.
I think it was last year or the beginning of this year, they did a poll on young people aged 18 to maybe 45, something like that, about fighting for the country.
Yep.
So one of the questions was, If the UK was at war, would you fight for the UK? 45% of people in that bracket said no. Then they asked another question. The UK is about to be invaded. Would you fight for the UK then?
Yes.
And something like 25% of people said no. So with getting young people to join the army is going to be very difficult. Most of them would not even fight for the army if we're at war and if we're going to be invaded.
Well, again, we'll just have to see how they repackage it, okay? Because if they remove all the war stuff and just hit you with admin jobs, you know what I'm saying? Because the machines, the future robotic warriors of our army, they're going to need someone to like oil them in there. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be a weird feature, Nick. You know, where I talk about this a little bit jokingly, but it's kind of heading that way. Like it really is, and I wonder what the plan is.
Guys, here's me in the army when I was 17. It's me and a guy named Jacko, who's my best mate. I was 17, 18 there.
For all this, from my global cabal bloodline mindset here. And also as well, I'm not for national service. Just want to put that out there to everybody. It was just interesting when you said the demographic there, because then I imagine if you had 4 years national service when you were 20, came out of that when you were 24, I wonder if those countries have a difference in how people see things. Because I believe if you're given everything, you don't give a shit about anything, right? Look at some of those council houses you see on the telly now, right? Like dogs crapping all over houses and that. If you bought that house, there's no way your dog's crapping all over it. It's just not happening, right? It's just not happening. People, the mindset of community is gone. The mindset of feeling safe is gone. The mindset of being able to afford all the things we want and live a life that we think we should have gone. It's a bit bleak. We need something to happen. We really, really do. Like we need.
Vast. The difference with drugs is that's self-inflicted. So, you know.
A disaster. I don't want, before people complain that I want a disaster, I don't want it. I'm just saying, if we had a disaster.
In my state's prison system, you can actually go outside and work for a wage, and you get paid a full wage for a proper work site. So we do have opportunities for people to learn how to work and live life properly. Our system's pretty good, to be honest.
Yeah.
If we had.
Just remember, if you're a politician on the internet saying we need a disaster, we're just two guys on the internet talking, people. If a disaster happens in the next 48 hours, it's nothing to do with Nick. Okay, we're two guys here having a conversation.
Nick predicted it. He's part of the cabal.
He's part of the cabal, baby. He's a shell.
If we had a decent sized war, if we had a meteor hit somewhere in the world and we had, a nuclear winter, if COVID came back and was a proper disease this time, not a made up one, and suddenly, many people died in this country, industry stopped, we started struggling, people went hungry for the first time in centuries.
Yep.
That would pull people together. Tribal instincts would take over, we'd pull together as societies, as a nation, we'd help each other again because we would all know we've got to rely on each other. What's happened over the last 50 years or my lifetime is life has become more and more comfortable. We've got no challenges. The only real stress we have now is for.
Okay, guys, one more and I'm out.
The signs were there, little things. My boss, Mark Torres, mentioning in a routine meeting the importance of cleaning up the old archives with absolute discretion. An email I received by mistake about 6 months ago, talking about a containment protocol for researchers who asked unnecessary questions. At the time, I thought it was corporate jargon. Now, the words sound like a death sentence. That car outside isn't waiting for the sun to rise. It's waiting for me. The question is, What do they know? Do they know I copied the file? Or just that I opened it? The light from my monitor flickers for an instant. My mouse freezes on the screen for a second. And then a new terminal window, black with green text, opens by itself on my desktop. I'm not typing anything, but words appear, one letter at a time. Gregory, we know. Do the right thing. Delete it. Forget. The window closes before I can even take a breath. The server's whirring seems louder now, like a scream.
Shawnee, Bobo, and Vass are always going at it, and sometimes they both say some really funny things.
Paranoia has given way to a cold, absolute fear. I'm not a spy. I'm not a hero. I'm a digital archivist. But I saw something that turned me into a target. The question hammering in my head is no longer if the conspiracy is real. The question is, how the hell am I going to survive the night? The night dragged on like a fever dream. The message on my terminal vanished as quickly as it appeared, leaving me in a deafening silence, broken only by the hum of the machine and the frantic beat of my own heart. The black car remained outside, a motionless sentinel in the darkness. I didn't sleep. I just sat in my chair, the flash drive a heavy anchor in my pocket, my gaze shifting between the screen and the small basement window that looked out onto the street. At dawn, around 6:15 a.m. on November 15th, 2023, the car simply drove away. No noise, no hurry, as if it had never been there.
Yeah, today's the last day, isn't it, Andrew?
For a moment,
geez, you're going to want to forget these tests pretty soon.
A wave of relief washed over me. Maybe I had imagined it all. The stress, the long hours, but hope was a weak drug. When I tried to...
And Andrew, you know what was sweet about it? A few of your press were saying this is the worst Australian side we've ever fielded. They said that, and then we come out and beat them in 2.5 days. Don't poke the sleeping kangaroo.
Access the Arcanum Foundation's network to log my remote workday, my access was denied. Invalid credentials. I tried my email, blocked, my work phone, deactivated. I'd been erased. Cleanly, silently, and terrifyingly efficient. The terror returned with full force. That wasn't a warning. It was the first step in my disappearance. My gut told me to run, grab what I could, and vanish. But where to, and with what? The only proof I had was on that tiny flash drive. If I ran, I'd just be a madman running from shadows. I needed to understand what I was holding. I spent the next few hours in a haze of panic and caffeine. I connected the flash drive to an old air-gapped laptop, one I kept for personal projects, ensuring there was no connection to the internet. I opened the image file again, the memo. This time, I didn't read the text. I analyzed it. I zoomed in 800%. The resolution was incredible.
Yeah.
I could see the fibers of the paper. It was high-grade linen paper, the kind they don't mass-produce anymore. Using forensic image analysis software, I managed to isolate the watermark. A small globe, intertwined with what looked like a compass and a square. Cliched but effective, the signatures. I ran them through a calligraphy analysis program, the pen pressure, the slant of the letters. They were consistent. They were real. I compared William Phillips Harris's signature to public examples from corporate documents. In the 90s, it was a 98.7% match. This was no forgery. It was a genuine document. Then I opened the second file, the audio file. It was a WAV, low quality, full of static, like a pocket recording. It was 17 minutes and 24 seconds long. I pressed play. The sound was of a large, echoey room, indistinct voices in the background, the clinking of glasses. And then, one voice rose above the rest, speaking English with a polished American accent. The voice of a young man, filled with a cold arrogance. And the deal is clear. We facilitate the channels. We prepare the flock. In return, we receive the keys to technology, to biology, to the very fabric of time. They don't care about money or power. That's primitive. They feed on resonance, on emotion. And the most potent emotion, the one they value most, is collective despair. Another voice, older, with a German accent, cut in. But 1 billion, William, it's an ambitious number. The logistics of generating that, resonance on such a scale, without exposing our hand. The first voice, William, laughed. A short, humorless laugh. That's why the 50-year timeline, Klaus. It's not a hunt. It's a harvest. A few small wars here. A financial crisis there. A well-placed pandemic to instill fear and mistrust in their fellow man. Each event is a pulse, a partial payment. We acclimate them to anxiety. We normalize the chaos. By 2030, they'll be so exhausted, so broken, they won't even notice the final harvest. It will just be another bad Tuesday. My blood ran cold. The voice. I'd recognize it anywhere. It was a young William Phillips Harris, the same man who decades later would become a global philanthropist, shaking hands with presidents and accepting humanitarian awards. The threat became even more real, more concrete. That afternoon, around 5 p.m., things got worse. I was in the kitchen trying to eat something when I heard a noise from my car parked in the driveway. I went to the window and saw 2 men in coveralls next to a telecom services van. One of them was fiddling under my dashboard. I ran to the door, but by the time I opened it, they were already getting in the van. "Neighborhood wiring issue," one of them shouted with a forced smile, before closing the doors and speeding off. I went to my car. Nothing seemed out of place, but I knew. I checked the car with a cheap bug detector I bought years ago out of paranoia. And there it was, a small GPS tracker and a microphone, cleverly hidden behind the radio. They weren't just watching me, they were closing in. That night, fear gave way to a cold anger. They took my job, my security, my peace of mind. And why? Because I stumbled upon their truth. The truth that the last few decades of human history weren't a series of unfortunate accidents, but a macabre business plan, an emotional energy farm. I couldn't go to the police. Who would believe me? An unemployed archivist with a digital file and a story about interdimensional entities. I'd be locked in a psych ward before I finished my first sentence. I was alone, completely isolated. With every passing hour, the net tightened. My personal emails started bouncing back with user not found messages. My social media accounts were suspended for violation of terms of service. They were erasing me not just from my job, but from my own digital life. I was a ghost, and I knew what happened to ghosts. They disappear forever. The memo and the audio were my only weapon, my only chance. But what could I do with them? Leak them to the press? They controlled the press. The names on that document owned media conglomerates. It would be buried in a day. I needed help. Someone who operated outside the system. Someone who knew how to fight in the dark. And then a name came to mind. A name I hadn't thought of in years. A ghost from my own past.
Back at you, Shawnee. We love you too.
Jason Mendoza. Jason Mendoza. In college, we were rivals. Not in grades or sports, but on the debate team. I was the pragmatist, the one who believed in working within the system to change it. Jason was the anarchist, the iconoclast, who believed the entire system was a sham and needed to be burned to the ground. He saw conspiracies everywhere, from the ingredients in the cafeteria food to the university library's endowments. I found him brilliant, but dangerously paranoid. Our debates were legendary, clashes of idealism versus cynicism. After graduation, our paths diverged completely. I entered the corporate world, seeking a stable career at the Arcanum Foundation. Jason disappeared into the depths of the internet. Last I heard, he was running an obscure blog and a dark web forum dedicated to exposing truths no one wanted to hear. He was my only option. The problem was how to contact him. I didn't have his number. I didn't know where he lived. All I had was the name of his old blog, The Waking Eye. It was a long shot. On November 17th, 2023, around 8 p.m., I drove for an hour to a public library in a neighboring town. I left my car several blocks away, along with my phone and anything with a battery. I used one of the public computers, accessing the network through a Tor browser. Jason's blog still existed, though it looked like it had been abandoned for years. But in the page's source code, hidden as a programmer's comment, was an encrypted email address. It was the breadcrumb trail I was hoping for. I created an anonymous email account and sent a message. It was short and to the point. Jason, it's Gregory Ross from college. Remember the debate on the philanthropic industrial complex? You were right. I found something. I need help. I'm being erased. I didn't expect a reply. But 20 minutes later, one came. Prove it. I sent him a single screenshot, the header of the Davos memorandum. His response was almost immediate. Starlight Cafe, tomorrow, 2 p.m. Come alone, take the last booth, order a black coffee, bring no electronics. The Starlight Cafe was a run-down diner on the other side of the city, one of those 24-hour places with cracked vinyl seats and a permanent smell of grease and burnt coffee. The next day, November 18th, I followed the instructions to the letter. I arrived at 1:50 p.m., left my car 10 blocks away, and walked the rest of the way, making sure I wasn't being followed. I sat in the designated booth, my heart hammering. I ordered the coffee. At 2:05 p.m., a man sat across from me. It wasn't the Jason I remembered. The long hair was gone, replaced by a buzz cut. He was thinner, with deep-set dark circles and eyes that seemed to be analyzing everything at once. He didn't say hello. Just, you have 3 minutes to convince me this isn't a trap and that I shouldn't walk out that door right now. I told him everything. The file, the memo, the audio, the message on my terminal, the tracker in my car. He listened in silence, his face impassive, stirring his coffee with a spoon. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Let me see it, he finally said. I passed him the flash drive under the table. He took it and plugged it into a small device he pulled from his pocket, no bigger than a lighter. He stared at the tiny screen for a few minutes, his face scrunched in concentration. The container's encryption is military grade, old, but robust. File creation date is 1996. That's when they must have digitized the original documents, he muttered to himself. Then he looked up at me, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of something beyond suspicion in his eyes. It was recognition. You really stumbled into the Viper's Nest, Ross. That afternoon in Jason's safe house, a cramped, cluttered apartment above a laundromat, its walls covered in whiteboards filled with diagrams and newspaper clippings. We got to work. He was a genius. Where I had the contextual knowledge of the corporate world, Jason had the technical skills to navigate its shadows. He took the names from the memo: William Phillips Harris, Paul Thomas King, Stephen Cooper Miller, Charles Rogers, Donald Hall, and started digging. He didn't use Google. He used leaked databases, private flight logs, offshore transactions, hacker forums. It was like watching a conductor lead an orchestra of digital chaos. The connections began to appear, slowly but surely. On November 25th, 2023, we had our first major breakthrough. Jason found a pattern. Every signatory of the memo, or their companies, had made strategic acquisitions of companies in seemingly unrelated sectors, months before major global crises. Before the 2008 financial crisis, they bought up debt collection and private security firms. Before the 2009 H1N1 outbreak, they secretly invested in labs that would later produce the treatments. And most frighteningly, in the last 5 years, they've been buying up tech companies focused on social media emotion monitoring and internet infrastructure companies in developing nations. They're not just causing the crises, Gregory, Jason said, his eyes glowing with the feverish intensity of discovery. They're building the infrastructure to measure and harvest the resonance. It's a closed-loop system. The picture that was forming was more terrifying than the memo itself. It was a global mechanism fine-tuned over decades, operating in plain sight, disguised as capitalism and philanthropy. Every news story about war, famine, or disease took on a new, sinister meaning. They were production reports for the shareholders of the apocalypse. We were figuring out the how, but we were still missing the when. That's when I remembered something from the audio, a phrase William Phillips Harris had said, which seemed unimportant at the time. Until the convergence is complete. Convergence, I repeated aloud. Jason's eyes widened. He turned to his keyboard and started typing furiously. He searched for the word convergence in conjunction with the signatories' names in leaked internal documents he had acquired over the years. And then he found it. On December 2nd, 2023, at 3:14 a.m., a project timeline encrypted within the servers of a subsidiary of Phillips Harris's company. The project name was Project Solstice. It detailed the final phase of a global initiative, the activation date, December 21st, 2024. The description was vague, talking about global network synchronization for crisis response optimization. But we knew what it meant. It wasn't a response to a crisis. It was the trigger. It was the mass harvest event, and we had just over a year to stop it. The discovery of Project Solstice changed everything. The abstract threat of 2030 became a terrifyingly concrete deadline, December 21st, 2024. The clock was ticking. The next few months were a blur of paranoia, relentless work, and small breakthroughs. We lived in Jason's apartment, rarely leaving, surviving on crypto-paid food delivery and the adrenaline of the chase. Jason turned his apartment into a digital fortress with multiple layers of security, while I dove into analyzing the data he extracted, trying to find the final piece of the puzzle. What exactly would happen on the day of the convergence? The pieces Jason unearthed painted a horrifying picture. Project Solstice was a three-pronged weapon. The first was technological, a sophisticated malware planted over years in critical global infrastructures, power grids, communication systems, financial markets. It was dormant, waiting for a single activation signal. The second was social, a mass disinformation campaign designed to launch simultaneously across all major platforms, exploiting existing divisions and amplifying them to the extreme to generate panic and distrust on.
Diane, what do you think that one sin is that stops you getting into heaven? I think it must be this. If you died without professing Jesus, that's the great sin you can't forgive, because you're now dead and you can't change your mind on that. So I think that's what it is.
A scale never seen before. And the third, the most sinister, was biological. We found shipping records to labs controlled by Phillips Harris's subsidiaries, detailing the global distribution of components for a new type of vaccine for a future inevitable pandemic. The components, when analyzed by Jason's contacts in the bioengineering underworld, didn't seem to fight a virus. They seemed designed to amplify the human neurological response to fear. It was the harvest infrastructure. They didn't need to kill 1 billion people. They just needed 1 billion people to feel pure, absolute despair, all at the same time. The energy released by this synchronized global event would be the tribute, the final payment on the deal made in 1988. By July 2024, the pressure on us was mounting. We started to feel like we were no longer just hiding. We were being actively hunted. One day, the regular food delivery guy was a different man, one who stared at the apartment door for a second too long. On another occasion, the power to the entire building went out for exactly 3 minutes, just long enough for a breach team to get in and out, if not for Jason's early warning systems. We knew our time was running out. We needed the final proof, the smoking gun that no one could deny. The audio was powerful, but the quality was poor and it could be dismissed as a fake. The memo was shocking, but it could be called an elaborate forgery. We needed something more. We needed to connect William Phillips Harris, the respected billionaire, directly to the plan. In his own words, inarguably. The answer was in the files I had stolen. There were mentions of a private data vault belonging to Phillips Harris, a personal server where he kept his most sensitive records. It was considered impenetrable, but Jason had a theory. He believed the only way Phillips Harris could securely access that data from anywhere in the world was via a physical token, a hardware key. And by analyzing flight logs and cargo manifests, Jason had tracked the movement of a specific item that always traveled with Phillips Harris, an innocent-looking cigar case. But the case's shipping specifications were the same as those for sensitive electronic equipment. The token had to be in there. Our plan was insane. Phillips Harris...
Andrew, it's going to hit 42 degrees in the next couple of days. So I got the air conditioning on.
was scheduled to be at a charity gala in Geneva on September 15th, 2024. We needed to clone the signal from his...
Guys, when I don't answer straight away, it's because I sit back and watch the show for a while and then check the chat every now and then, because otherwise I'll miss what's going on the stream if I don't get to watch it.
Token. Jason believed if we could get within a meter of the case with a cloning device, we could capture the authentication handshake and use it to spoof his servers. It was a window of opportunity that would last only a few seconds. Using the last of our resources, we bought tickets, fake IDs, and equipment. The names on our new identities were Scott Brooks and Christopher Evans. I would be a waiter, Jason, a sound technician. We spent weeks studying the hotel's layout, security protocols, schedules. The night of the event was the longest of my life. My heart was beating so hard I could hear it in my ears. I saw Phillips Harris up close. He was just like in the pictures, charming, charismatic, shaking hands and smiling, all while I knew that behind that smile was a monster who traded in souls. The cigar case was with his head of security, a huge man named Anthony Collins. My job was to accidentally spill a tray of drinks on Collins, creating a diversion. In the 3-second chaos that would follow, Jason, positioned nearby with the scanner hidden in a press camera, would capture the signal. At 9:47 p.m. I did it. I spilled champagne all over Anthony Collins. He roared in anger. Jason moved in. And then it all went wrong. Security reacted faster than we anticipated. Alarms blared. We were separated. I was grabbed by 2 guards. I thought it was over. But Jason, faithful to his nature, had a plan B. A small smoke bomb disguised as a battery pack detonated, filling the ballroom with fog. In the confusion, I managed to break free and run. We met at the pre-arranged escape point, a loading dock at the back of the hotel. "Did you get it?" I asked, breathless. Jason smiled, an exhausted but triumphant grin. He held up his device. A green light was blinking. We got the bastard. We made our way back to a new safe house, a small chalet in the Alps. For 48 hours straight, Jason worked to crack the data vault security. And then, on September 17th, 2024, at 11:11 p.m., he was in. The screen filled with folders. They were the personal logs of William Phillips Harris, video diaries, decades of confessions. He spoke openly about...
Okay, Bobo. He lost me when he said he got trapped by all these people and he threw a grenade bomb and managed to escape. If you're surrounded by people, little smoke bomb or not, you're not going anywhere. So he's bullshitting there, which means his policies, his words can't be trusted. So yeah, bye-bye. Yeah, I haven't got anything else lined up, have I?
What is it? Very busy.
Now, my friends,
We have Hollywood freaking out over this in a absolutely hilarious manner. We're going to get into that, of course. We have also a very bizarre connection to a video game, apparently. Call of Duty. Somehow it managed to predict this whole thing. We'll get into that as well. And actually, we got so many other things to get into. Also, some new statements from the president. We got famous people like Sneeko talking about this and stepping in a big time because he doesn't know what he's talking about. Matter of fact, let's start there with Sneeko. Venezuela confronts him about his support for Maduro. She tells him Maduro was not elected, and that Venezuelans are now happy. Okay, let's check this out. See what he's saying.
He was captured.
Okay, Bobo, you asked how people get sent to hell. They don't get sent to hell, they go there by choice. When they're alive, if they don't want to know God, God is not a stalker. He's not going to stalk you. He can say, okay, you do your own thing. But, so if you choose not to have God in your life and you die, you're not going to have God to save you because you didn't want to know him. He doesn't know who you are. So therefore, you don't want to be where God is. Hell's the only place God is in that. And that's why people go to hell. Oh, man, I think I'm losing my train of thought today.
What's the difference?
I can see it that you are in there for him because
I keep confusing what I'm saying today, guys. Sorry.
he lost elections. Like the once he get in power with socialism, they never get power.
I understand what you're saying, but as an American, like I don't care about your elections. If you won the election or not, that doesn't matter. Trump brought troops to your country, didn't have your president. You say it's captured or whatever, it doesn't say them.
But to all the Venezuelans that you asked, they are so happy.
I know.
The Venezuelans are all happy. And Sneeko obviously completely misses the point.
Wow,
It seems like everyone's just taking sides. You know, if you're on this side.
Wow, Vas, did they really? Israel just, wow.
That's anti that country in the Middle East. You must be against this invasion of Venezuela. This seems to be what they're doing. And no one can just think for themselves. Look.
Okay, that's what I was saying, Bobo. When you go to hell, you go where God isn't. And God's love, hope, he's all them beautiful things. And you don't want to know God, you don't get good things that go with him. So you go where he's not, and that's hell. And that's how you get to hell. You send yourself. He doesn't send you there at all. He says you didn't want to know him, you get your choice.
Oh, I might agree on this, but not agree on that with the same person that I usually follow. Why is everybody got to pick these teams? Why can't you just think for yourself? It's very obvious that this is very good for the Western Hemisphere. We had all these drugs inflowing into our country from that country. They're taking all the oil from there, and it's going to our rivals, our main rivals, Russia and China, buying up all the oil, flooding our country with drugs. I mean, it was totally a pariah in the area, near our country. And now we...
So I got about 3 or 4 months worth of food stock, dry foods like flour, rice, powdered eggs, spam, spaghetti. I got all that. I got about 4 months worth saved.
Fixed it. The problem's fixed. Okay? I mean, it's the same with Greenland. You have all these Russia and China ships all around Greenland. And supposedly, Greenland is being controlled by Denmark, and Denmark's supposedly our NATO ally, which apparently they don't give a crap. You see what I mean? So it's not, they're clearly not putting our country first, is my point. If they're putting our country first, which these people claim they want, that are against this country in the Middle East, but yet for some reason they have a problem with this whole Venezuela thing. If you're wanting to put our country first, why are you just letting all this garbage around us happen? Clearly, that's not what you would do if you're putting our country first, like they claim they're doing. See what I mean? This is my entire point about this. And so we're going to get into a ton of stuff. I love what our president's done this year. It's like we started off on the right foot, and everything seems to be going the right way so far. I'm very happy with this year already. I was very unhappy for the last 3 months of last year. There was just a bunch of infighting. Everybody's fighting. You know what I mean? Ridiculous. Let's actually get some winning going on again. You know what I mean? Which we're now doing finally. Right? So Maduro says, "Come for me." Gets jailed in the USA. Duterte. He's the guy from the Philippines. My wife's Filipino, by the way. I dare ICC to come and arrest me. Duterte now in jail at The Hague. Careful what you wish for. Yeah, indeed. Careful what you wish for. Of course, he was basically a narco dictator. Just a drug dictator. That's all he was. A drug kingpin over a country. The left, of course, completely utterly triggered over this. Apparently, also some on the right that apparently are not fans of our president and think everything's all about that country in the Middle East. That's all they think about. I mean, I'm not saying that, but quite a few. That's what they talk about a lot of the time. Well, that's all they talk about. At any rate, so this is what I voted for under the new national security strategy. American dominance in the Western Hemisphere will never be questioned. Exactly. Look, if you're putting our country first, which is what they claim they want, they claim it. Let's just be consistent at some point. My point is to be consistent, not to get into some weird, mantra of like this. Think for yourself. What is our goals? What is our focus here? We want to make our country stronger. We want to have more dominance here. We want to be secure. These are what we want. This is what I want, at least. I'm assuming probably almost everyone following me wants the exact same thing, right? I would assume that. Let's just hear what our president has to say here. Check this out.
Israel was increasingly hosting foreign adversaries and acquiring menacing offensive weapons that could threaten U.S. interests and lives. And they used those weapons last night.
Our girls wear funnel web spiders for earrings. That's how tough our girls are.
Those weapons last night, potentially in league with the cartels operating along our border. All of these actions were in gross violation of the core principles of American foreign policy.
So it's kind of funny, man. Like, just because he's a president of a country doesn't mean he can just do all manner of evil he wants and get away with it. Now, if he was a drug ping leader or something like that, instead, no one would even care. Like, oh, okay, he got rid of some bad guy. It's the same thing. He's just leading a country while doing it. It's literally the same thing. Anyway, we're going to get into a ton of stuff in this video. First of all, I'm going to
Bash has got the memory of an elephant. Bond, James Bond.
To food supply, 25-year shelf life. Link is in the description. They got 3 months. Option premium package available. They have other options, 1 month, even day versions of it. Very cheap. They even have free options. Self-powered indoor heaters for free. I think you just pay for shipping. We got this Alexa Pure water filtration pitcher. Grid Doctor power bank with solar panel. Like, seriously, that's not bad. I mean, get something that's probably worth $100 for free. I don't know what the shipping cost is, but I'm guessing you have to pay the shipping cost, right? Not a bad deal. Go check it out. Link is in the description for that. And also the food supply. Also this book here, The Lost Ways. Our great-great-grandfather lived without electricity. We just had in Germany, and it's still continuing right now. It's already been 3 days, and they got 2 more days left, and are already concerned that the water pumps are going to be destroyed because they have a massive blackout in Berlin right now. Tens of thousands of people without power until January 8th due to sabotage at a power plant. And we talked about this. We had people trying to do that here in America as well. We also had hackers doing this 2 years ago in Washington State. This could very easily happen, right? It's always wise to be prepared. Go check it out, especially at this time of year. This would be the time of year that they would want to do it when you have winter, right? It's wise to be prepared for whatever is next. Link is in the script, $37 gift privilege. So, of course, go check out all my other social media link below. Let's get back to the video. So we have here, the left is completely triggered, which is awesome. Like I said, we have Hollywood freaking out over this. Let me show you that. Actually, let's show you this one first. Venezuelans literally crying tears of joy. This sounds like a good one to start it off. Let's start with this one.
Por su milagro, a lo que pueda creer que yo milagro. Gael, por fin va a conocer Maracaibo después de tantos años. Era su amigo. A Venezuela, quería conocer a Venezuela, nací en España, pero quería conocer a nuestra Venezuela, esta Venezuela bonita. Mi hijo.
It's been a hellhole for about 2 decades now, and it got much worse under Maduro. You can see, obviously, I don't know what this guy's saying because I can't speak his language, but you can see he's obviously very happy about this. He says, "Thank you, United States. Venezuela is great, and we will be resurrected among the ashes." Amen. 100%, man. I agree with that. And of course, you have Hollywood freaking out over this. Like I said, celebrities rush to call for impeachment after U.S. apprehends Nicolas Maduro, America's Terry, apparently. This is what they're claiming. Oh, we should protect dictators that sell drugs into our country and sell our oil to our rivals. What are you talking about, dude? Destroy their own people. What is it? Millions and millions. How many people live in it? It's like a huge country. I think it was, I'm trying to remember, it was how many millions that live there. Let me go look real quick. How many people live in Venezuela? How many people type live in Venezuela? There we go. 30 million. 30 million. Like I was thinking, it's an insane amount of people. It's like the 10th of America. The 10th the size of America. It's like 5 U.S. states worth of people that had to live under this in extreme poverty, by the way. It's not like they had a great society or something, anything remotely like that. I covered this before. They got a narco dictator, severe economic crisis beginning under Hugo Chavez, worsening under Nicolas Maduro. Right? Over-reliance on oil, government mismanagement, corruption, U.S. sanctions, leading to hyperinflation, deep GDP contraction, 80% mass. People leaving, like a third of the people left. Widespread poverty, shortages of food, medicine, etc. because of all the things they were doing. And they were working directly against our country, straight up, and all the countries in the region, just destroying. It's like a parasite, right? Selling all these drugs and everything. We have here, what does this say? With Maduro falling, it is a good time to remind people that Venezuela became a heavily socialist country under Hugo Chavez in 1999. A lot of people forget. Chavez coming into power, Hollywood movie stars and left-wing liberals were drooling over themselves about how great he was.
Where they were eating their pets, and like a third of them had to run away from their country just to find food. To put that into perspective, guys, that would be over 100 million people in America running away from America just to find something to eat. That's how badly their country got screwed. If they're not going to learn their lesson, they kind of get what they deserve.
Oh, I think they'll learn their lesson eventually. I would hope so with New York City. But we'll see what happens. And here we have a clip on CNN about this whole thing. Check this out.
Australians keep watch over their homes, but ignore home insurance premium rises.
Hey, I have CCTV.
So while you don't see, you can also compare and save. It pays to compare.
Can you test drive today?
Optus secures AI, so you'll feel good turning at least to its job, knowing the right controls are in place.
I swear by God, Tagidia shampoo will make you grow new hair in 2 weeks. If no new hair grows, we will compensate you.
So should there be an election? If you give me the floor for 30 seconds, let me tell you what we are doing. The United States, this is sort of foundational. The United States is using its military to secure our interests unapologetically in our.
Yeah, baby, I'm on every day, except sometimes my Tuesday, because me and Gabe go on dates.
Our hemisphere. We're a superpower, and under President Trump, we are going to conduct ourselves as a superpower. It is absurd that we would allow a nation in our own backyard to become the supplier of resources to our adversaries, but not to us, to hoard weapons.
Yeah, Diane, you notice the FEMA camps has been suspiciously out of the news? They haven't even spoken about FEMA camps, but I bet that's where they're taking the homeless to.
From our adversaries, to be able to be positioned as an asset
And used them against us too, by the way, when we went to get them.
against the United States, rather than on behalf of the United States.
Sovereign countries shouldn't be able to do what they
Monroe
want to do.
Doctrine? No.
Really, dude. So of course, this country in our backyard is literally doing everything against us, and also destroying its own people at the same time. And of course, we're going to step in.
Nope. Not if it's putting it out and causing us problems. The
Exactly.
Monroe Doctrine and the Trump Doctrine.
That's the Monroe Doctrine and the Trump Doctrine. The Trump Doctrine says they're not able to do what they want. I made up a rule that says I can do it.
Dude, exactly. So of course, now everybody's wondering what other places is he going to go into, and it's getting very concerning for some of these countries that are doing a lot of illegal activity, drugs, etc., like we see in Colombia. Here's our president talking about this more.
Hi, Mr. President. Have you spoken with any of the U.S. service members who were injured during that operation in Venezuela?
Yes, we have calls into them. I want to speak. They're all in good shape.
Can you detail what watching that was like when all of this played out in Venezuela and what Maduro was doing at that moment?
Well, I knew the boss was injured. It was a very dangerous operation.
What are you doing?
It was amazing that we had a few injured, but all are in good shape right now.
Only a few injured. That's it. A few injured. Insane. I mean, can you imagine how well that went? Of course, you have Mark Ruffalo, the guy who played the Incredible Hulk, freaking out over this, saying he looks like that bad guy from World War II. like our president's trying to take over the world or something kind of attitude. When in reality, we're just trying to clean up our backyard so we don't have, all this terrible stuff going on around us. And also on top of the people that are thanking us for it. They're literally thanking us for this. And it helps us, it helps them, it helps everybody, literally in the area. And we have here, of course, this guy's from Star Trek, George Takei. The United States can only begin a war with another country through a declaration of Congress. The president's actions are unjustified and unconstitutional. Military attacks upon Venezuela and the loss of life and property must end immediately. What are you talking about, bro? Millions of people lost their property, lost their money, lost their investments, lost their jobs, according to a Venezuelan actor. You're an actor. Here we have a Venezuelan actor saying that his entire family lost all their money, their investments, their jobs, everything. This guy plays in the TV show Dynasty and Empire, the TV show Empire as well. Rafael de la Fuente. Check this out, what he has to say.
There's a particular kind of entitlement it takes to believe you can explain Venezuela to Venezuelans. And what's worse is that this so-called analysis often comes from people who claim to oppose appropriation and white savior thinking while doing exactly that. When narratives about Venezuela are formed without Venezuelans in the conversation, reduced to simplistic takes about foreign interference and then broadcast as education through threads, carousels, or reels that end up whitewashing a narco-authoritarian regime, that isn't activism. It's the appropriation of a pain that isn't yours. Now, here's the reality. There are hundreds of political prisoners, including teenagers, many never properly tried. There are forced disappearances. More than 7 million Venezuelans, that's a quarter of the population, have fled the country, many crossing deadly terrain because staying was worse.
Bro, it's even more. It's almost a third. It's almost a third. It's like 30%.
Nearly half the population struggles to eat. Children are malnourished.
That's insane, dude. And of course, you have everyone on the left freaking out. Oh, they don't even understand what's going on. They literally don't understand how bad it was there. And people it's just amazing. I love to hear people who can think for themselves. Now, I don't agree with Bill Maher on quite a few things. The guy's quite literal in many respects, but at least he can think for himself, right? And you got to hear him talking about what has happened to the left. Check this out.
When people say to me, don't you think you've gotten more conservative? No, I haven't. The left has gotten goofier.
Yes.
So I seem more conservative, maybe, but it's not me who changed.
Yes.
I feel I'm the same guy. But 5 years ago, we hadn't spent $6 trillion.
He put this in good context, didn't he, guys?
To stay home. I mean, I understand.
It's funny, dude, because like if you think about this, what does the word conservative mean? It means conserving money. It means limited government. This is what back in the 90s, when they would talk about conservative, it meant limited government. It meant small government, which of course I pretty much just lost that word, right? Now conservative means basically you're normal. If you're just a normal dude that walks down the street, you're conservative by default because you're not crazy or think weird. Pretty much is what it ended up becoming today, right? So it basically is now. So of course now you have Cuba getting a little bit concerned. I think they should be a little bit concerned. I mean, they're pulling out their old Soviet technology, putting it on the beach. We're ready for you. You come in, we got you. We were ready for you. Of course, their technology is from 15 years ago, at least. Pretty old technology. I don't think it's going to stop us. Their little socialism utopia, actually, communist utopia is not going to work out too well. I think we could easily take it over, and it is literally on our doorstep. Cuba is. Now, I mean, it's a little bit more isolated than Venezuela. I wouldn't say it's a narco dictator, but you get the idea. It's obviously not a good place. They have a lot of weapons. That's a big issue. We had, what was it, a year ago? The Russians went over there and dropped something off. I covered it on video here on YouTube on my business channel. So it's not like they don't got stuff over there. And so they have some stuff probably pointed right at us right now that Russia gave them. And it's probably not that stuff I just showed you there. Okay, it's some bigger stuff, I think. So that is a concern. I'm guessing we're probably going to Cuba. I'm guessing it's probably going to happen. I'm guessing the Greenland thing's probably going to happen as well. And what's interesting, though, is you have here the Danish Prime Minister, a number of people from the EU freaking out over this whole thing with Greenland. The fact of the matter is, if they were doing their job correctly, if Denmark was doing their job correctly, we wouldn't even be concerned. They're supposedly our NATO ally. They allow Russia and China to have their ships all around Greenland. Why would they allow that? If they're supposedly our NATO ally, they should be protecting their waters, which they're not doing. So this is kind of why our president wants Greenland, is because they're not doing their job right. If they did their job right, we wouldn't have to intervene. That's the entire point. Obviously, you got that.
No, it's not. It's a doorway into the Arctic. That's why they want it.
Could be Greenland 2 coming out. I want to check that out when it comes out. Sounds pretty awesome. He says he's giving Denmark 2 months. We won't worry about Greenland in 2 months. Let's talk about Greenland in 20 days. We need it. So it makes sense. He says the exact same reason I just told you. They let China and Russia fly through the water, or go through the waters all the time. They're supposedly our NATO ally. It's like, what is NATO worth? Nothing. We do everything. We do all the grunt work. We put all the money into NATO. They don't do nothing for us. Literally do nothing for us. And then they said they're going to break up with us. NATO. They're going to break up NATO if we take Greenland. Why not? There's no purpose to NATO. You guys don't do anything. There's literally nothing you do. So we don't need NATO anymore. You guys don't do anything. We're the ones protecting you. You're not protecting us. You ain't doing anything for us. And Europe has turned into a hellhole anyway. So, you know what I mean? Like, whatever. Then you got this. This is really bizarre. And I don't think this will happen what it's talking about. So this game, Call of Duty, apparently called Call of Duty Ghosts, they had a mission of going into Venezuela, and it's very similar to what happened in the years matchup too, which is very bizarre as well. But let me just play it and we'll talk about it. Check this out. Here we go.
This game predicted the future? Yeah, it actually did. There's a mission called Federation Day in the game where U.S. Special Forces go into Venezuela in the middle of the night and literally arrest Maduro. What's even crazier, that mission was set in the year 2026. This game came out in 2013, the same year that Maduro seized power in Venezuela. But it's just a coincidence, right? Or is somebody from their team lying?
It actually makes sense if you think about it. So if the game came out the exact same year as when Maduro took power, it would make sense that if you wanted to make a game about a war, that you would do it on something that just happened. So it does make sense that could theoretically happen.
But I really hope that's the only coincidence, because what happens in the other missions is insane. Basically, the other stuff that happens in the game is that all of South America unites into one large federation. It's called the Federation of Americas, and they basically control the world's oil supply. A nuclear war happens in the Middle East. Global oil supply craters, and all of South America unites into the Federation of Americas. Federation of Americas' capital is in Venezuela. And
So the reason why this doesn't make any sense, or let me just explain it the way I'm thinking. So, assuming South America isn't one massive drug cartel, which I don't believe it is, this probably would never happen, because Venezuela, obviously being a drug cartel country, why would all the other South American countries gather behind it? It doesn't even make any sense, unless the entire literal continent was full of drug cartels, which hopefully it isn't, right? You know, so I mean, that's why I don't think it makes sense. Obviously, the first part, it makes sense that they would put that in the game, because that was literally what was happening in real time in the geopolitical arena. So it's not like it's some weird prediction. It was literally what was happening when they made the game. I mean, it's not like it predicted per se. You could say it did a little bit, but not really. You could. The one thing it did predict that is weird is that it was 2026 when we went in. That is weird. In 2019, that's not a prediction. That's literally what was happening. They literally made a game based on what was happening in real life. But then the 2026 thing, that's the one that's weird. Why was it that they would arrest him in 2026 and then it literally happened in 2026? Or maybe because remember who planned this whole thing, right? I talked about this in the previous video, so this might actually explain the whole thing. Barron, we're talking to the president's son, helped plan this, okay? He was part of the planning. Perhaps what happened was he's hanging out with his dad's, advisors and stuff. He's like, hey, I played this game called Call of Duty Ghosts. Hey, guess what happens in the game? They take over Venezuela in 2026. Maybe we should try that. That might explain what happened. I mean, literally, Barron was part of the planning. He probably played Call of Duty Ghosts. I play these kind of games. If I was talking to the president, I might think of something like that. Hey, I play this one game. And
I play them games too. I got World War II, Advanced Warfare, and Modern Warfare. Good games.
That's what happened in the game.
Call of Duty.
It makes sense. It actually makes sense of the whole thing. Why it would happen the way it did. It literally could have been Barron that came up with the idea. I don't know. That's what I'm starting to think, actually, because he's probably the only one who plays video games. I'm sure Trump doesn't play video games. I kind of doubt he does. Let's just put it that way. At any rate, so you get the idea with regards to that. We have here, like I said, Greenland. He's talking about that in 20 days, which ironically, a movie Greenland 2 is coming out. Are they like trying to time this with movies and games right now or something? It's really weird, of course, but obviously you could get really weird about this, or you could just look at it the way I just did there. With obviously Barron was part of the planning. He probably played the game and just put the idea out there or something. You know what I mean? And then actually was a huge success. It's just kind of crazy, right? And that's my video. Kind of want to see what you guys think. Let me know in the comment section below. Thanks for watching.
Okay, guys, I'm out. See you tomorrow. God bless.